Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to tonight's webinar presentation, Inflation and PPO Negotiations, Securing Better Reimbursements in Today's Economy. Welcome, everyone. My name is Shirley, and I will be your moderator tonight. I'm so excited to welcome Chloe Hironaka as our speaker this evening. Chloe Hironaka is the sales coordinator for Unitas PPO Solutions. She's worked with thousands of practices over the past 5 years at Unitas to help them implement PPO negotiation and optimization strategies. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to go over some quick housekeeping. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear them, and we ask that you please email them to webinars@henryschein.com or directly to Chloe. And I will go ahead and drop the email for where to send them to Henry Schein in our chat box. CE is not available for this webinar tonight. Chloe, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Shirley, for the introduction and warm welcome. And hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Super excited to be chatting with you. And tonight we're talking all about inflation and PPO negotiations, and most importantly, how you can secure better reimbursements in today's economy. As mentioned, my name is Chloe Hironaka. I'm a sales consultant here at Unitas, and I have to say, out of all the different roles I've had here at Unitas, being a sales consultant has to have been my most favorite role because it allows me to speak with dentists every single day about how to better their PPO participation. So without further ado, jumping right in, let's talk about the PPO profitability problem. So we all know it, we hear it every single day. I know I do, talking with dentists, that there's been a lot of inflation the last couple of years, and costs have gone up exponentially. And so even super busy practices that are treating lots of patients every single day, doctors feel like they're working harder than ever, are not seeing the increase in their net profit that they would expect or that they should be seeing. And the reason being is because their PPO reimbursements are capped. So even as their overhead costs continue to increase, the reimbursements aren't keeping pace. And so that means that your net profit starts to be capped as well. In a recent ADA poll, it showed that 57% of dentists saw no increase in their reimbursements in the last 12 months, whereas 25% actually saw a decrease in their fees in the last year. So with over 82% of dentists having PPO reimbursements that are definitely not keeping up with the rising costs, you have to sit there and ask yourself, are you one of them? If you're thinking yes to this question, no worries, you're in the right place. Luckily, today, we're going to be sharing how we can fix that issue and be talking about the PPO Profitability Solution. The only way that you're going to increase your PPO reimbursement rates is through negotiation and optimization, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. Otherwise, if you don't actively manage your PPO contracts, your profitability is going to continue to shrink. So you're going to be working harder and earning less, which we do not want to happen. But if we can increase these reimbursements, then you're going to see that increase in your overall revenue for your practice and in your net profit. So today we're covering our PPO negotiation and optimization framework that we've developed and use for clients every single day all across the country. And I'm going to share that with you. So we're going to talk about how to identify and map out your specific PPO participation so you know where you're currently at and where we need to improve. We're going to talk about our 3-step PPO negotiation framework. And I'm going to share with you a simple calculation to use when forecasting your PPO negotiation return on investment. But before we get into our framework, I figure I should take a step back and give you a little background as to who we are and why we've developed this framework. So Unitas has been in business since 2011. So for the past 12 years now, we've had the opportunity to work with thousands of practices all across the country. We've had clients in every single state and currently represent over 1,800 active clients. So lots of data and experience to draw upon. And we make up a team of over 100 experienced PPO insurance consultants, as well as many others behind the scenes to make it all happen. Before we also get into our framework, I also wanted to share with you a little bonus for being part of today's webinar, which is our PPO Negotiation Quick Start Guide. So if you want to take out your phone and scan this QR code, or if you want to simply open up another tab and type in www.ppoguide.com, or if you're not in a place where you can download this at this time, make sure to save that. Again, that's www.ppoguide.com. And make sure that you download our PPO Negotiation Quick Start Guide. I still highly recommend that you take lots of notes, and as we're going through everything here, just write down things that stand out to you and reminders. But this will really cover everything that we're going over today, so that way you can use it for your reference and convenience after this webinar. So to start off, we're going to talk about identifying and mapping out your specific PPO participation. This is a very crucial step in the process. A lot of people get super excited to start negotiating, that they just start calling everybody, start saying, I want to negotiate, I need an increase. And then they kind of get burned out, and because they don't see maybe some of the results that they're expecting. But part of it is because you might not be contacting the right places or the right people in the first place. So just like taking an x-ray with a patient in order to create a treatment plan that's going to be effective, we need to know what the current PPO situation is. And we want to make sure that we're doing that per doctor, per location. So we're going to cover how to discover and map out your PPO participation, how to receive and document your actual current fee schedule reimbursements, and comparing and repairing UCR versus reimbursement discrepancies. So when it comes to discovering and mapping out your PPO participation, something that's really important to note is that there's really 4 different ways you can participate with an insurance company. Of course, one way is being completely out of network, but then there's 3 ways that you can be considered in network, and that's really what we want to make sure we're focusing on. You can be directly contracted, you could be in network through another PPO, or you can be in network through what's called an umbrella company, or we call it umbrella networking. And depending on which participation type you are, is totally going to determine the fee schedule you're currently utilizing. And it's all based on how you contracted or credentialed with an insurance company. So you want to keep those 3 different participation types in mind, and I'm going to elaborate on each one in just a minute here. And then you want to start by contacting provider relations to confirm which of these participation types you are, or if you're completely out of network. And as a bonus for being part of this webinar today, at the end, we're going to go over our provider relations contact list that you get as a bonus here. So that'll make this a lot easier task to start on. But again, you really just want to make sure that you're verifying for each specific doctor and each location. Even if your locations or doctors are under the same tax ID number, or your doctor's at the same location and tax ID number, there can still be discrepancies. In fact, I will say that in our experience, usually when you have a multi-provider practice or multi-location practice, there are those discrepancies, and it's just what starts to happen when you're in network with PPOs and you're doing credentialing at different time, or different people are doing it. And so again, back to that x-ray analogy, just like if you had a set of twins, you would give them each separate individual x-rays. You wouldn't just do one for one and then count it good for the other. And the other tip I recommend when you're going through this verification is using a spreadsheet to collect all the info. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, focus on your major PPOs first that come to mind. And you can just list out all those major insurance companies in your first column of your spreadsheet. And then each subsequent column lists each provider at the practice. And then that way you can just go through and document what you find for each provider and each insurance company. But the very first question you're asking to the insurance is, are we in network, or is this provider participating with you? Yes or no. If they say, no, you're not in network, then you can note down, not in network. You know you are not a contracted doctor or in network with that insurance company. So you're not taking any reimbursement from them. Or if they say, yes, you're in network, we don't just want to rely on that answer. Again, that's not super sufficient. That's not telling us which participation type you are, which means we're not going to know what fee schedule you're using. So we need to see, okay, are they directly contracted, or are they in network through another PPO or another company? And then they should be able to verify which other company you would be in network with, or if you're direct. If they say that you're in network through another company, then you stop there, you note down which company they say you're through. If they say you're directly contracted, then you want to get an effective date and your current fee schedule, because that means that you are directly contracted, so you're using that company's fee schedule. So they should be able to provide you with a copy of that, and they should also be able to provide when your contract went into effect or when you became credentialed with them. So just to quickly elaborate on those different participation types a little further. So this one we kind of just were talking about, but the direct contract is going to be the most straightforward. It's probably the one you're all aware of. It used to be the only way you could really be in network with an insurance company. But basically, in order to be directly contracted, that means that you would have at some point had to actually complete a credentialing application for the specific insurance company. So when those insured patients come into your practice, you treat them, submit the claim back to that insurance, they'll process it, but they're actually going to reimburse you according to their fee schedule, since it's a direct contract. But we also have what we call PPO to PPO leasing. And this is where it starts to get really, really confusing. And a lot of providers and even office managers, even really, really experienced office managers, a lot of times don't know that this is what's happening. But the insurance companies have essentially partnered together and agreed, in order to grow their networks, to lease their providers out to any insurance that they form this partnership with. So what that means for the provider is, if you were to go directly contracted with this insurance company, they start leasing you out to any other insurance company that they form this partnership with. So when those insured patients come to your practice, you treat them, submit the claim back to their insurance company. They process that claim, but you're actually going to get reimbursed according to this insurance company's fee schedule, since they're the one that you have the direct contract with that's leasing you out to this other insurance company. So there's several common examples of this. A lot of PPOs do this now. And then we have the umbrella networking relationship. So the umbrella networks are very similar to the PPO to PPO leasing relationships, but umbrella networks typically aren't insurance companies. They're also known as TPAs, or third-party administrators, and their job is to recruit a lot of providers and put you in network with a whole bunch of different PPOs, hence the name umbrella. So they have a lot more vast payer lists. And so it really depends on which umbrella you've contracted with as to which PPOs you could potentially be in network with through that umbrella company. But same thing, just like the PPO to PPO leasing, you will be paid on that umbrella's fee schedule for any PPO you're getting or accessing under that umbrella network. So essentially, it's kind of like this huge web of all the insurance companies being tied together because of all these different leasing relationships and partnerships, which is why we really want to go in and make sure we're untangling that and understanding truly what your status is. You don't just want to take it for granted and think, oh, because a certain company says that I'm in network, that means we're directly contracted and using their fee schedule. there's a lot of times that's not what that means. That means, yes, you are in network, but you could be using a totally different company's fee schedule than what you maybe thought or realized. And a lot of times providers end up, because again, of all this different leasing relationships, they'll end up being in network with way more PPOs than they thought. So again, definitely want to make sure we're looking at the whole PPO picture and verifying everything. So as you're verifying your participation, like I said, you also want to be collecting copies of your current fee schedules. Again, please do not assume that whatever fee schedules you currently have loaded in your practice management software are accurate. Insurance companies do make adjustments and changes to their fee schedules, and you may miss the notification of that or the new copy of that. And so you really want to make sure that whatever you have on file is accurate. And so I recommend, again, as you're calling, to ask for them to send you a copy of their current fee schedule once you identify you're directly contracted with that company. Provider relations should be able to either fax or email it to you. A lot of PPOs, you can now download it directly from your provider portal. But again, just make sure it's specific to the doctor and location. And then, of course, update your Dentrix or practice management software with that current fee schedule. Now, the last topic we kind of want to talk about in this section is comparing and repairing UCR versus reimbursement discrepancies. So what I recommend is taking your top 20 to 35 UCRs at least. You for sure want to get those ones. If you want to do your full list of UCRs, that's fantastic too. But you want to put those in a spreadsheet, and then you want to increase, or you want to input all of your current fee schedules, matching those procedure codes, what the reimbursement rates are on those procedures. And so that way you can see a side-by-side comparison of your UCRs and all of your reimbursements and see where you need to increase where necessary. You really do not want your UCR to be at or below your highest reimbursing PPO fee schedule. It needs to be higher than that. And this kind of goes to just a little side point here. A lot of offices, or occasionally I'll hear from offices that on the claims, they're submitting whatever the fee schedule says, not their UCR. You don't want to be doing your billing like that. You want to show that discrepancy of what you would normally be charging a fee for service or non-insured patient and what the reimbursement is from the insurance company that you're accepting as an in-network provider. And we have seen a correlation between what the insurances are willing to negotiate and reimburse you and what your procedures are priced at. So you really want to make sure that you're continually increasing those and staying competitive with the market. Again, to our whole point today, especially with all the inflation and increase in costs, you need to reflect that in your pricing so that the insurances realize, okay, everything's gone up. We need to also come up with our reimbursement rates. So I really recommend utilizing a percentile-based analysis tool to make sure that not only are your fees just higher than your current fee schedules, but that you're actually competitive for your area. And this is something you should do annually. We use for our own clients the Henry Schein fee analysis. So that's the one that I recommend because I feel like with their data, that's definitely the most accurate one out there. So before we kind of jump into our next topic here of our top negotiation strategies, I just want to take a quick pause and remind you, if you have not already, to make sure that you have access to our www.ppguide.com to download our PPO Negotiation Quick Start Guide. So again, here's the QR code, URL, ppguide.com. Make sure you download that so that everything we just went over in our previous section, you have all of that information to reference, as well as everything else we're going to cover moving forward. So next, we're going to be talking about how to utilize our 3-step PPO negotiation framework. Again, all the tips that I'm using today are tried and true. This is what we use for our clients and have done so for the last 12 years. So this is the true negotiation framework we follow. We're going to talk about ensuring you don't waste time on the wrong procedures, how to approach the PPO negotiation process, and how to compare your offers received from PPOs. So first, we're going to talk about ensuring you don't waste time on the wrong procedures. So we kind of talked about this in the last step, but I highly recommend that you focus on your top 20 to 35 procedures. If you're a specialist office, you can look at all of them, but for general dentists, we always recommend the top 35. Because at the end of the day, that's really where you're going to see the biggest difference in your overall revenue is by increasing the procedures you're doing the most often. And when we're going to talk about this, but when we're looking at all the different fee schedule offers and comparing between different companies, we really want to make sure we're paying attention to frequency as well. So anyways, how you can do this is you can export your annual production summary from your practice management software, and you just want to ensure that the report is listed by procedure code, quantity, and production. If you don't know how to do this, you can of course contact your practice management software support team, or even just doing a quick Google. A lot of the instructions for the different softwares are out there already very clearly outlined and published, so you can also try that out, but you should be able to get instructions on that. And then once you have that, you can sort it in a spreadsheet, rank it by your highest grossing production, and that will pull out your top 35 procedures. Now, when talking about negotiating or approaching the negotiation process, it's important to note that most PPOs will consider you eligible to negotiate every 2 to 3 years. There's a couple PPOs that it could also be annually, but for vast majority, they'll usually say 2 years from the time that you're originally contracted or from when you last negotiated or received a custom increase. So you want to reach out to provider relations and request a fee schedule increase, and that's what you say, or you can say a fee schedule review. Again, make sure, so you're not wasting time here, that you're paying attention to that PPO participation and any leasing arrangements. So all that information you gathered in step 1, you really only want to ask for increases on the fee schedules for the main payer. So for example, if you find out that you're in network with Guardian, but you're in network through Aetna, meaning you're using Aetna's contracted fee schedule, you're not going to reach out to Guardian to negotiate because they're just going to tell you to go to Aetna, since that's how you're in network with them, that's the fee schedule you're using. You're just going to reach out directly to Aetna to say, I would like to increase our current fee schedule or renegotiate our current fee schedule. Now, comparing offers received from your PPOs. So again, using all of our previous steps, we want to make sure that we've identified the procedures that have the highest quantity and production revenue. In a spreadsheet, you're going to compare all your current fee schedule reimbursements with the new fee schedule, again, across the top 20 to 35 codes. So I know that for even just updating your UCRs, I was saying the top 20 to 35, but you can, if you use the Henry Schein fee analysis, they'll give you that complete list for your UCRs. But when looking at the increases, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes to look at all the procedures. So that's why, again, we always say just focus on your top 35, since that's where you're going to see the big difference anyways. But you'll, in your first column, I would list out the procedure code. Then in the next column, list out your UCR. And then in the third column, list out what your current reimbursement is from that insurance company. And then in the fourth column, list out what the increase is. And then if you want to get really fancy with it, you can do like a 5th and 6th column showing like the percentage increase, the dollar gain, the annual revenue increase based on how many times you're doing the procedure. But anyways, you can decide what you want to do there. But bare minimum, for sure, make sure you're comparing what you're currently getting and what the increase is, because we have noticed that sometimes when an insurance company offers an alternative fee schedule, or what they'll say is an increased fee schedule, they've actually gone in and increased some codes and then decreased others. So again, this is why frequency is very, very key, because $100 increase on a code you're never doing is going to be outweighed to a $5 decrease on something you're doing all the time, right? We don't want to accept a fee schedule like that, where they're giving you a huge increase on something you never touch and decrease something you're doing every single day, right? So we just want to be very conscious of that. And then once you've analyzed, you've seen that it is a good, true increase. Then we're going, you're going to accept that. And for every company, that acceptance process is a little different, but the rep you're working with to negotiate with should be able to guide you with that. And those instructions. But once you say that you accept that fee schedule, you want to audit your EOBs to make sure that they are paying you on the correct fee schedule. Now, note that it does usually take some time for the new fees to go into effect. So even if you tell them, yep, we accept, that doesn't mean that day they're updating it in their system. Most insurances, it's going to take 30 to 90 days, potentially more, for the new fees to go into effect. So you can ask for an effective date with your new fee schedule, and they should be able to provide that to you. And then when you're loading your new fee schedule into your practice management software, just keep that effective date in mind. And after that effective date, that's when you want to do your auditing to make sure the new fees have been updated or have gone into effect. Alrighty, so finally we're moving into, we're going to talk about calculating your PPO negotiation return on investment. But before I show you that calculation that we use, I want to talk about really maximizing your PPO participation and your reimbursement rates and how we can really get the maximum ROI on this. So we're going to cover how you can ensure your PPO fees are competitive for your area. We're going to talk about optimization, how you can minimize risks there and maximize benefits. And then we're going to go over the calculation and how you can calculate your return on investment from PPO negotiations. So when it comes to ensuring PPO offers are competitive for your area, this is really where we come in. And a huge benefit to being experts in this field and a third-party company. Obviously, we have seen hundreds of thousands of fee schedules at this point. So we really do know, we have the data to compare if your offer truly is competitive or not, and for your specific area. We have high-level insurance contacts that most practices aren't going to have access to, and obviously a very highly trained team with years of experience and a proven track record of implementing this framework we've developed of negotiations and optimization successfully for practices. But I really recommend getting expert involved like Unitas to make sure that these fee schedules are competitive, because you don't want to get locked into a low offer. You really only have the opportunity to negotiate, like we said, every 2 years. So don't lock into something unless you know you truly are getting the best rate possible. The other benefit to working with us specifically is that we really take it a step further past negotiations and look at optimization opportunities. You maybe have heard the word optimization floated out there before, but a lot of people wonder how that pertains to their PPO contracts. But remember how we kind of went over all of those different ways you can be in network, those 3 different types of being direct, in network through another PPO, or in network through an umbrella? Well, like I was saying, that a lot of times can cause a lot of confusion for offices, because it makes you be in network with more PPOs than you thought or wanted. And so it's always kind of like a surprise, and it's difficult to quote patients or know what fee schedule they're going to be on. It's kind of hard to track all of that. So that's definitely frustrating on the clinical side. But on the reimbursement side of things, a lot of times those leasing relationships start to hurt providers when they're not properly managed, because not only are you tied to more in-network reimbursement, but the insurance companies, because most providers are over-contracted, meaning they could access the same PPO multiple different ways, the insurances can essentially kind of pick and choose which contracted route they're going to go and reimburse you on. So we want to make sure that for every single PPO, the contracted rate you're going to get is going to be the highest possible. So we want to make sure that we're actually using those different leasing relationships to your advantage as the provider to get a higher fee schedule. So what we can do is we have found that through managing that, there sometimes are other arrangements available that are even more profitable than just PPO negotiation. So for example, if you're currently directly contracted with an insurance company, but we know that they partner with an umbrella network or another PPO that is offering a higher fee schedule, we may recommend that we route that insurance to, and for you to participate under this other higher reimbursing company. Or vice versa, maybe you're under an umbrella network or a PPO that's really not giving a great fee schedule. Even with negotiations, maybe it's still not where you would hope, and you're accessing all these PPOs through it. Maybe it's time to look at going direct with those individual PPOs or going through a different umbrella network or PPO relationship. So for every single PPO, that's really what we're assessing. Again, looking at that whole PPO picture of identifying, okay, once we've negotiated and gotten all proposals on the table, does it make the most sense to be directly contracted? Do we purposely want to go through another PPO or umbrella network? What makes the most sense for this specific PPO and for your practice? It's very, very complex, which is why even if I wanted to do a whole webinar on it or give you like step-by-step instructions, there's literally no way that I could. It's so unique to each practice, each state, each insurance, each specific plans. There are so many ins and outs of it, which is why, again, that's where I recommend getting us, the experts, involved, since we know how to shift participation, the risks involved, the timelines, how we want to do that. But really, again, a huge key is like where we start with it is reaching out. As we're reaching out to negotiate all these direct contracts, we're reaching out and negotiating proposals from all these other insurances that maybe you're in network with, but it's because you're being leased through someone else, or maybe you're completely out of network. And we go to them and saying, okay, if Dr. Woods become direct with you, what's the best you're going to offer? And then that will allow us to have all fee options on the table. So for the past 10, 12 years, Unitas has implemented this plan and framework for thousands of dentists. And, you know, we've really helped pioneer representation for dentists. And our whole goal is to ensure that you are in the best PPO position possible. So through doing this, we can project your return on investment or your ROI through our average results. And we have a really quick and easy calculation of how you can do that. So for most of our clients who go through the PPO negotiation optimization process, they will experience on average at least a 10 to 18% increase across the board on their reimbursements. 18% or above is going to be in the above average range. 4% will be considered below. So a really quick and easy way that you can actually apply these percentages to project your annual revenue increase, which is a little bit more interesting, is if you take your annual production before write-offs. So for example, here I put $1 million, and then you take your percentage of patients under negotiable PPOs. So for example, here I put, again, 50%. So whatever your PPO patient base is, and then you're going to multiply that against that annual production, and that's going to yield what we consider your negotiable production. So in this case, $500,000. And so really that's the revenue that, back to what we started with at the beginning, is capped based on your reimbursements, but that can be improved through this process of negotiations and optimization. So if we take that, we multiply it by that scale, you can see at the 4% increase, that would be a $20,000 annual revenue increase for the practice. If you're to increase 10%, that's going to be a $50,000 annual revenue increase for the practice. 18%, $90,000. So really great results. My favorite thing about PPO negotiations and optimization is that it literally is giving yourself a raise. You're not having to treat any additional patients. You're not having to increase production. You're really not having to change anything that you're currently doing on the clinical side. Again, it's all about working smarter and managing these contracts and getting paid more for all the hard work that you're already doing. And these increased results, they really start to add up really, really fast. And it's really cool to see the impact that they start to have on your overall revenue for your practice. And as you continue to renegotiate year after year after year, you can continually see that increase. So to share some samples or some case studies here, we worked with Dr. Morgan in North Carolina. They had 5 negotiated contracts, 2 PPO optimizations, and they experienced over a $64,000 annual revenue increase going through this program. For Dr. Baker down in Texas, they had 5 negotiated PPO contracts, 3 PPO optimizations, and they saw an overall revenue increase of $79,000. And in Florida, for Dr. Young, they had 7 PPO negotiations, 4 PPO optimizations, and they saw an over $100,000 annual revenue increase. Again, without changing anything on the clinical side, they got a $100,000 raise. That's what you can think of this as. So again, to recap, the 3 key strategies to increasing your PPO reimbursements that we covered today is step number 1, understanding your current PPO situation. Make sure you discover and document your PPO participation status with each company. Collect all of your current fee schedules. Step 2, tactfully approach negotiations. Ensure you don't waste time on the wrong procedures. Make sure you're looking at those top 35 procedures and reaching out to the right companies. And step number 3, maximize your negotiation opportunities by partnering with us, Unitas, the PPO experts, to evaluate all additional opportunities to maximize your in-network participation. Alrighty, so you're probably feeling a little bit like this right now. Information overload. I know we covered a lot, and hopefully, again, it was helpful tips for you to get on the path to higher fees. Again, just in recap, because I know it was a lot of information, please be sure, I'm just going to throw this up here one more time, that you have downloaded our PPO Negotiation Quick Start Guide. You can scan the QR code or go to PPOguide.com. This is going to be recapping the whole framework I broke down for you today. It's going to have all the information and details and hopefully be a great reference tool for you. Alrighty, so now what's going to happen, right? Now what? You've sat through this webinar. We've been chatting for over a half hour now. Depending on where you're at, when you're watching this, you might go back to treating patients. You might go back to scheduling appointments. You might go back to calling insurance companies, right? I totally know how it is. But you've already taken the time to sit through this webinar. And by even watching it, you obviously are serious about increasing your reimbursements. So if it helps you to make changes faster, because the reality is your practice needs higher PPO reimbursements ASAP, right? Again, costs have gone up. They're continually going up. The only way we're going to break through that and get that net profit up is by increasing these reimbursements that are capped. So the sooner we start, the better. The sooner you stop losing money on these PPO patients. So if it's okay, I'd like to make you an offer to help you maybe implement some of these changes a little faster for your practice, and so that we can actually now move forward with action and get these changes going. So if you can open up another tab, or again, scan this QR code, you can schedule a free PPO consultation call with us. So if you already have the other tab open of PPOguide.com, all you need to add is a /go, and it will lead you directly to our scheduling calendar. You can simply pick out a date and time. There should be lots of slots available for a free 30-minute phone consultation with one of our sales consultants. In this sales call, we'll have the opportunity to review your PPO insurances. We'll get some background there, and then we can calculate your potential ROI based off of what your situation is. And we can identify which of our services you're going to be best suited for and what that would entail. Plus, if you do this consultation, which again, I highly, highly recommend, so that we can at least talk about your specific situation, answer any questions that you had today, You're also going to get these 3 awesome limited time bonuses. So they're bonuses for being part of this webinar and also for having a complimentary consultation call with us. You're going to get that PPO Provider Relations Master List we talked about earlier. We make hundreds of phone calls to PPO insurances every month. So I would say that we have a pretty comprehensive master contact list. This is going to save yourself hours of sitting on hold. We all know that there's nothing worse than being rerouted a million times, put on hold, it's been 20 minutes, you then get told that you've been you've called the wrong place completely or called the wrong number. So this is just a direct, you know that it's the right place to contact, and it's going to help you collect that PPO participation that much faster. And so you can print this out, pin it up on the wall, save it, download it. It's a $199 value that you are getting completely free. The other bonus you're going to get is one of my favorites. It's our e-guide to 35 common insurance problems and how to avoid them. So after all this time, we have compiled our top PPO solutions to our most commonly asked questions. So this contains information from things from downcoding to balance billing, out-of-network benefits, to making info changes, how you go about that. So if you need to update your tax ID, if you need to change your business name or you're moving locations, key steps to adding associates to PPOs, and much, much more. So it's really hard sometimes to know all these different random insurance questions, like who to go to or where to find this information. Again, we've compiled a lot of them right here, and you're going to save yourself so much time and frustration trying to figure out the answers to these different nuanced situations. So this is a $299 value that, again, you're getting completely free as a bonus for this webinar and completing a free consultation with us. And then our other bonus, this is another really goodie, our fee schedule analysis tool. So I know I said this word spreadsheet quite a few times throughout this webinar. And if you're like me, you know, making a spreadsheet is not always the easiest task, or it's just kind of added work. And so with this, it's so nice because it's literally the same tool that we use to analyze our clients' UCRs and PPO fee schedules. And so you can save yourself the time and the hassle of trying to figure out how to do the spreadsheet, how to input everything. This is going to make it so much easier. It already has the automated formulas and calculations, easy to use online spreadsheet. It's going to show you, okay, are those UCRs too low? How do your reimbursements compare to other PPOs? What are your highest and lowest reimbursing PPOs? So it's all right here. This is actually a like $500 value, $499, that you are getting completely free. So just to recap all the good stuff you're going to get, you're going to schedule the free consultation call with us, which is going to be super educational. It's going to be a free PPO evaluation and ROI projection. You're going to get our e-guide with the 35 common insurance problems at $199 value. You're getting our provider relations master list at $299 value, and our PPO fee schedule analysis tool at a $499 value, plus hours of your saved time, which we know is priceless, and higher PPO reimbursement rates. So you're getting a total value of over $997 of stuff completely free. So again, all you have to do is go to www.ppoguide.com/go, or you can scan the QR code in the top right corner of your screen, and it will lead you to our consultation calendar, and you can schedule a time that's going to work for you. We'd love to meet with you. We would love to discuss your PPO situation and get you on the path to higher fees. All right, well, to kind of tie everything together today, I wanted to save some time to go over some frequently asked questions that we will often get from clients and just from talking with dentists every single day. Are there any PPOs that won't negotiate? So as we previously mentioned, you're typically eligible to negotiate every 2 years. For some companies, it'll be annually. Some companies, it may be closer to 3 years, but every 2 years is kind of the safe general rule of thumb. And that's from when you originally contracted or from when you last negotiated. So if you have accepted an increase more recent than that, or got contracted more recent than that, there's a chance that for your specific eligibility, certain PPOs may or may not negotiate at that particular time. So as a whole, PPOs, obviously there are some that are going to be more susceptible to negotiations than others, but that's why we really want to hone in on that optimization, because that really is what's going to open up so many different avenues and opportunities. Because even if a company did negotiate, if they only come up so much, or you're only able to do that every 2 years, and there's another company that's giving you a higher fee schedule anyways, then we can switch you over to participating with that company that way. Or on the reverse, even if you're with an amazing company that's offering a great fee schedule, if you've got all these other contracts in place, so it's preventing you from getting paid on that higher fee schedule, you know, we want to reroute everything there. So that's why optimization you can do at any point in time. And again, an additional great route for us to explore our alternative option. Because that way, if the insurance says that you're not eligible at that time, or that's already the highest they can give, that doesn't necessarily mean all hope is lost. Again, you can still see an increase by rerouting or optimizing your insurance. I will say, out of all the PPOs, one of the biggest insurance companies that our hands are going to be the most tied with at this moment is going to be Delta Dental. In our experience, they historically do not negotiate or deviate from their standards that put in fee schedules. It's very, very rare to see that. They also don't partner with any other company. So optimization is not an option for Delta Dental at this time. They don't go under any umbrella network or anything like that. So that's probably one that I know so many offices are with, that again, I would say our hands are probably the most tied with, or that if you've tried negotiating and you're like, man, I keep hitting a wall with Delta, you're not alone. That's pretty status quo based on our experience as well. That being said, I do just want to also note here that if you're sitting here thinking, oh, well, that's my biggest PPO. Again, that's very, very common. We're not strangers to that. That's the same case for many, many offices. A lot of our clients, Delta is a very major PPO, but still, even maybe more so, worth it to make sure that you're negotiating, optimizing everywhere else that you can. Even if you think you only have like a 20% patient base that's PPO, not Delta, you can still see a fantastic ROI going through this service, and you can still see an increase in your overall revenue. So don't let that deter you and not do anything else about your other PPOs just because Delta's your biggest PPO. And on the reverse, if Delta's the only PPO that you participate and you're frustrated with the reimbursement rates, then maybe it's a good time to start evaluating what other PPO options are out there and diversifying a bit, and yeah, looking at maybe adding some PPOs. So that kind of leads me to the next question, which is, we're thinking about dropping or adding PPOs. Is that something you can help with? Absolutely. And that's something that I highly recommend getting us involved with to help with, because again, back to all those different leasing relationships, you really want to be so cautious when you're thinking about dropping a PPO, because you really want to know who it's tied to so that you don't accidentally, drop a main payer that's the one that's leasing you to all these PPOs that you want to keep unknowingly, right? So we just want to be really cautious of that. And again, a lot of times when people go to drop PPOs, it's because they're not satisfied with the reimbursement rates. And we can hopefully combat that through negotiations and optimization. There may be other routes so that you can stay in network. Maybe you're just not directly contracted with that insurance anymore. And then as for adding, again, on the reverse, you just want to make sure a lot of offices will think they're just adding one particular PPO and don't realize that it's actually going to subject them to a whole bunch of different PPOs and plans and different fee schedules. And so we just want to be really aware of what the options are there. And the other thing is back to, that you only can negotiate every 2 years. Ideally, you want to negotiate before you add a PPO, because If you don't, they're just going to put you on whatever their standard fee schedule is, and then you're locked into that for 2 years. So we definitely want to make sure that we're negotiating, looking at all optimization options before we add a new PPO. And that kind of leads into the next question. I'm on a roll here. If you're opening or purchasing a new practice, how do I set up my PPO contracts? Do I need to get credentialed if I'm already in network at another location? Okay, so kind of address the second part. Yes, you do need to get credentialed. Credentialing is totally specific to the location that you're at. So even if you've been credentialed at another location, if you're going somewhere else, you're going to have to go through a credentialing process in order to be in network at that specific location or that specific tax ID number. And so when you're purchasing a new practice or doing a startup practice, just know that it's not a guarantee that you're going to inherit the seller's fee schedules, nor if you have a current existing practice that you're going to carry those fee schedules over either. So again, back to the last question, we usually for startups and acquisitions, you want to make sure that you're negotiating and verifying the fee proposals first, and then moving forward with the contracting that needs to be done. And then I'm adding an associate and I want them to treat insured patients as a network. Do they need to be credentialed, or can they just bill under me, the owner, like as if you're the owner doctor? Okay, this is a question that I get all the time. So with the credentialing, again, like I was saying, it's done specific for the credentialing. With the claims, you'll notice that it will say who the billing entity is, and that's usually where it will list the owner doctor, the address, the tax ID number, whoever the billing entity is, i.e. whoever the payment is going to. But then it will also list who the treating or rendering provider is. You should always be listing whoever the true treating provider is doing that actual procedure. That ultimately is going to determine how the claim processes, whether it's in or out of network, depending on if that provider who you listed as the treating provider has been credentialed to that specific billing entity. So for that address and tax ID number. So no, you are not supposed to be, if you have a bunch of associates and you're the only one credentialed and you're just listing yourself as both the billing entity and the treating provider, that is illegal. You are not supposed to do that. You need to get your associates credentialed. So if you're in that position, make sure to schedule a consultation with us and we will help you with the credentialing for your associates so that you can bill properly and accurately. There also could be, if you're like, yeah, we're wondering why there's all these discrepancies of why certain providers are in or out, but like the owners, you know, credentialed, that also could be why. So we just want to make sure we get all that squared away and make sure everyone's credentialed as they should be. Alrighty, so can we work with Unitas and what do you charge? Absolutely, you can work with Unitas. We would love to work with you. So again, make sure you schedule that consultation so that we can get started on that for you. As far as what we charge, that is something that we can cover in the consultation with you. We have a couple different services that vary in price, and it really depends on your PPO position, how many locations you have, how many providers, what specific service you're needing, as to what the cost associated with that's going to be. So for the most accurate quote, make sure you schedule a call with us and so that we can get that for you. Alrighty, well, that's all of our questions that we have for today and all the information. Thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If there's any questions you have that I didn't get to, please feel free to email them to pposolutions@unitasdental.com. We'll be sure to answer those, or better yet, make sure to schedule the consultation at www.ppoguide.go.com. Alrighty, thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much, Chloe. That was really wonderful and so thorough, your presentation. I also just added the email where you suggested that folks send you any follow-up questions or thoughts, and that's PPO Solutions at unitasdental.com. So those are both both that one and the Henry Schein email address are both in the chat. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We did record tonight's webinar and we'll be emailing the recording out sometime in the next week. We'd love to get your feedback via our survey that's going to pop up on your screens shortly. So please make sure to fill that out. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars very soon. Thank you. Have a great one.